Hi everyone, this is Teresa Tribolette, the content writer at Storage Unit Auction List. Welcome to this week's live webinar session where we discuss industry topics, some educational information, and various topics each week. This week's topic is going to be on auctioneer certification, some general do's and don'ts for being an auctioneer or for things that you should look for if you're an auction attendee out of your auctioneer, and then some tips for getting certified and a bit of information about the state-by-state guidelines requiring different certifications for being an auctioneer. So we have a couple different tools here that you can use to communicate with us. There's a hand raise tool on your right-hand panel. You should see a little icon. It looks just like a hand. You can use that to ask a question or get our attention, and then we can unmute you or you can chat to us. If you don't have a mic and you don't need to be unmuted, you can simply chat to us or use the question tool as well. Both of those are chat features. So if you respond to us, if you send us a chat at the end, we'll respond to any questions you have, and we'll take questions live. Okay, so first off, we have auctioneer dues. As a regular auction attendee, you know that the better the auctioneer, the smoother the overall process is going to be of the auction. The auctioneer's purpose is to lead each auction and drive up the bid on the unit. Obviously, they're there to help the facility recoup their financial losses, so they are there to make money. However, you should first and foremost, they should be trustworthy and courteous to all attendees, and that's really important. And you'll find most auctioneers are courteous and trustworthy and great. As a storage buyer, it's important for you to find somebody that you trust, and also somebody that is willing to learn your bid techniques, which makes the process more efficient for you. It makes it more efficient for them. It makes it more efficient even for the other attendees. As a bidder, you just don't want to have to worry about having a problem at an auction. Somebody, for example, who has automatically more knowledge than you being in the crowd and bidding on a unit, such as somebody in the facility staff or somebody that's been placed there by the auctioneer, because obviously the facility staff and the auctioneer, they do know a little bit more about the units than you do before the auction, because the facility usually is required by state law to go into the facility, or I'm sorry, into the storage space before the auction and take just a cursory estimate of the items in there, and that goes then into the announcement that they're required by law to post in newspapers and in online newspapers and in other engines of that nature that relate to storage auctions. So typically they have a little bit more knowledge about what's in there before you. Again, they're not supposed to open things. We've talked about this a lot at past auctions, at past webinars, but for anybody who's new, facilities are typically not allowed to open boxes or open containers or go through things, but they are allowed to, before the auction, cut the lock. They have to usually change the lock to prevent the previous owner from coming back and trying to get into their unit. And then they also take that cursory cursory glance into the unit and make a list of what they can see, and then they provide that in the listing. So because of all that, you want to make sure that you're dealing with an auctioneer who's trustworthy, and that somebody from the facility is not there bidding against you in the crowd. That's not something that they're letting happen, or that they haven't placed somebody there, and that's really important. So just to kind of kick us off here, how many of you have lost a unit, or you know someone who has, because the auctioneer has overlooked your bid? So if you want to use the hand raise tool, I won't unmute everybody right now, but if you use the hand raise tool and just let us know, we'd appreciate it. It stings if you lose an auction because you willingly drop out, because you decide that it has gone past the limit that you're happy to spend on that unit. But it's even worse, I think, if you are overlooked by an auctioneer by mistake because they don't recognize that what you're doing is actually placing a bid, or that you are trying to go higher. Sometimes, in big crowds, it can be easy for auctioneers to overlook you like that. But, for you, it's no fun, and it's something that you don't want to happen often, if ever. So in keeping with that, here are some things to look for positive auctioneer attributes and traits and things that they do during the auction. So the first one is be friendly and appropriate with everyone. So that's sort of a given, but they're there to answer your questions about registration, help you get registered. You might be able to politely ask them what they do know about certain units. They might be able to give you that information. Again, be polite. That's not something they always feel comfortable giving out. And they're there to, really great auctioneers are going to go above and beyond. They're there to sort of help facilitate the process of the auction, so they might provide, some early morning auctions might provide coffee, a little coffee setup, donuts, things like that, just kind of make the auction smoother for everybody, and that's going above and beyond to really make it a great event for everybody. The second thing is run the auction with authority. So an auctioneer, like we just stated, is there to be appropriate and to be friendly and to be courteous to all the attendees. However, if you do have somebody that's there to cause a problem, you want an auctioneer who will take care of that in an authoritative but polite way and just make sure that nobody's there causing you trouble or losing you money. For example, if you have a new person, they might not know right away that they aren't supposed to go inside the units. Most auctioneers will say that in their opening and tell everybody that, but maybe they didn't hear it. So a good auctioneer will probably politely state to that person, hey, just a reminder, you can't go in there, please kind of step back, you can't touch things, you can't open things, please don't do that. But if it continues to be a problem and somebody's clearly just breaking the rules and seeing what they can get away with, a good auctioneer is going to remove that person and make sure they're not there causing trouble and hurting your chances at winning a good unit. The next tip is a good auctioneer will be informed and learn by our bidding traits. So I talked about this a little bit already, but seasoned auctioneers are going to be able to quickly pick up on your bidding traits, even if they're subtle, even if they're small, even if you're not screaming yep like Dave Hester. They're gonna notice when you bid, even if you're just tapping your foot or raising one finger. The good auctioneers will be able to pick out those small, subtle bidding traits and be able to easily spot you in a big crowd. And finally, they're going to have perfected the auction chant. A good auctioneer will provide you information that you need to make an informed bidding decision while still being entertaining and still making sense. And that last one is very important because an auctioneer can sometimes that filler, it can sort of somebody who doesn't have the best auction chant, that filler can tend to just be kind of nonsense and not always the best and not very entertaining or not informative. So you want to make sure that you're dealing with an auctioneer who has a good chant. Okay, and now here are some auctioneer don'ts. So some of these are kind of common sense, but we'll just go over them. Playing favorites is first and foremost the #1 don't of auctioneers, whether you're an auctioneer or if you're a bidder in the crowd. It can be easy to get to know an attendee, somebody who comes regularly every week, and give them a helping hand if you're an auctioneer. But somebody who's a good auctioneer is going to avoid that because it's not fair to the other bidders, and it's a smart business move for them to treat everybody fairly, because just because somebody is a new bidder this week, 3 months from now, they might have come to all of your auctions. And if you didn't give them a fair shake that first week, then they might not bid with you, they might not come to those auctions. So it's courtesy, it's common sense, and it's good business. So as a bidder, you want to be seen, and that might mean that before the auction starts, you can go up to the auctioneer and say, I don't want everybody to know when I'm bidding, but here's what I'm going to do, and that's when I want to increase my bid, and here's what I'm going to do if I don't want to increase my bid anymore, and I only kind of want you to see it, so I want you to know because it's going to be subtle, and there's nothing wrong with letting them know that, because that's going to help them. If you're new, if they don't know you as well, that's going to help them to be able to pick you out easier. They should look at everybody's bids, and they should not play favorites, but knowing as much as they can about everybody's bidding techniques helps them to do their job better. The second item here is ghost bidding, and so this is any time an auctioneer, and again, most auctioneers, you're not going to find this. These are just big don'ts that we wanted to touch on. This is when an auctioneer purposely raises a bid on a buyer even when nobody else is actually bidding. So the auctioneer calls out a number higher than what has actually been bid because they're hoping that you'll raise your bid a little bit, and then you're just bidding against yourself essentially. So all's fair in love and auction hunting. If you have to fight somebody for a locker and end up paying more than you want, you lose a little bit of money, but you're just absolutely flushing money down the toilet if you're just bidding against yourself, and there's no need to do that. So avoid any auctioneer who tries any tricks like this or any other tricks. You know, over time you'll be able to kind of cultivate a sense of somebody who's doing those sorts of things, and then you can kind of avoid them and try not to attend the auctions where they're going to be doing the chant. Then finally, change the fair warning. So a lot of times at the end of an auction, there's a fair warning that the auctioneer will give everybody to let everybody know that they're about to wrap up that particular auction on that unit. And so some people just say, this is fair warning, this is fair warning, this is fair warning, or they have different phrases that they use to do that. But this goes kind of back to what we were talking about before with playing favorites. You don't want somebody who's changing that fair warning just based on who you are or who you may be bidding against. Maybe they have somebody that, you know, that they are sort of, they know more and that person is bidding against you. So if you're the last bid, they might kind of draw out that fair warning to try and see if their buddy might have another bid in them. So things like that. You just want to avoid anybody who's going to do that and cause you to lose money and to spend more money than you need to spend in actuality, or lose the unit entirely, because then that person comes in right at the end and places a bid above yours, and then they automatically end it, and then you don't have a chance to bid again. You know, that then you're going to lose the unit. Okay, so now some information about state-by-state auctioneer certification laws. As the PowerPoint says, laws do vary state by state, and there is no U.S. federal law that regulates auctions. It just doesn't exist. And each state has a different set of requirements. So whether or not your state requires an auctioneer to hold the storage auction, to hold a certification is usually found in any self-storage statutes passed by the state. And each state has different requirements for licensing, education, bonding, fees, and any other aspects of conducting an auction. So while not all states require licensing, all states do have laws and regulations covering the auction industry, and a lot of times if you can't find something, a specific self-storage statute passed by the state, you can find the information that you need in the Uniform Commercial Code, which is the UCC, is the basis for auction laws in a lot of states. Some states require an auctioneer simply because of the potential conflict of interest if a facility manager or an employee or somebody associated with the facility were to hold the auction themselves. Obviously that would be a conflict of interest, as we talked about earlier. So a lot of times auction rental facilities, self-storage facilities will just hire an auctioneer even if it's not required, just because to avoid any conflict of interest on their end. And then even in states where facilities do not require an auctioneer to hold the sale, many facilities do choose to hire these auctioneers anyway, just because it saves them a lot of time and energy, and then that removes the burden on them to actually hold the auction on the day of an event. That burden then gets shifted to the auctioneer. There's a lot of details involved, registration and so on, so that burden then gets shifted to the auctioneer, the business that comes in to do the actual auction, and then that burden is taken off of the facility, who is there to sort of run their self-storage business first and foremost. So here's a sampling of some of the larger states and the laws about certification. So in California, no state license is required, but a $20,000 bond must be filed with the state secretary. Some local governments may have licensing requirements, which means that, you know, on a local level within different counties that there might be requirements that aren't listed on the slide. In Texas, an approved auctioneer course is required to be licensed, and then continuing education courses are required for license renewal. And finally, in Florida, an approved auctioneer course and/or apprenticeship requirement is required to get licensed. So if you have questions about a specific state, please save those questions until the end of the presentation, and then I have all the information on hand that I was able to find. I believe it's the most recent information on hand to give you just that information. If you have a specific state question, obviously we didn't want to spend the time to go through all 50 states because you know, that would just take a lot of the presentation time. So let us know if you have specific questions at the end and I can answer those. Okay, so now if you're interested in becoming an auctioneer, this is some information. This is 10 tips to help get you started. So and a little bit, a couple of notes on each of these tips. So the best way to get started is going to depend on your state, but these again are just basic tips. So one is research state and local laws regarding licensing requirements, and again I can provide you a little bit of information about your specific state requirements at the end if you have those questions. Many states and municipalities require auctioneers to become licensed. Proceed with licensing guidelines as your state requires. So that's first and foremost. And then 2, speech prep. So as an auctioneer, it's really important that you be comfortable speaking in public, and not only are you comfortable speaking in public, that you have a good auction chant and that you have really good diction and enunciation and so on. So our recommendation is that you take local courses on speech. If you have a local college, take some courses on speech there if you're just starting out. Another great program is Toastmasters Club, which they meet all over the country, and that's what they do. That's all they do. They help people with their public speaking. They hold events where people give presentations, and then they help those people improve the way that they speak. Third is become an expert and more research. So as a storage auction buyer, it's important for you to be informed on furniture, antiques, and other items regularly found in storage, and it's equally important for you to know all that information as an auctioneer, if not more so. You need to be able to assess the unit and to know how much the unit is going to be worth, and as an auctioneer, this is going to give you a place to know where to start the bid and know when to call the auction and end the auction as well. The 4th step is attend auctions. So congratulations, because if you already attend auctions as a buyer, you're a little bit ahead of the game. So we just suggest continuing to attend auctions or starting to attend auctions if you don't currently, but with emphasis and special care and attention on the auctioneer. Just pay close attention to what they do before the auction, how they set up, their roles, their habits, the way that they chant, how they recognize each individual person's bid, and so on. You may even be able to find someone in the profession that's willing to mentor you or answer your specific questions, which is really helpful if you're just getting started. And then the 5th tip is get certified in your state. So the programs vary state to state, but you can more than likely attend courses online, or sometimes, just depending on where you are, even locally. I feel like most places have, based on my research, local courses that you can take. Programs usually last a few weeks to several months. So you're just going to want to choose a program that suits your needs in terms of a timeline and when you're available and your schedule. So you can take classes in bid calling, marketing, and basic business management as well, which are really helpful. Okay. Tip 6 is join a professional organization in your state. And nearly every U.S. state has a professional organization for auctioneers. National organizations exist as well and offer continuing education and other resources to members. And as we talked about before, I believe it was in Texas, continuing education courses were actually required for you to get renewal on your certification. So that's something that you'll have to do regularly. Tip 7 is achieve certification as a professional auctioneer. And many organizations provide testing opportunities for auctioneers to provide their expertise on this. Becoming certified improves your credibility and professionalism as an auctioneer. So again, in some states it's not required that you be an auctioneer because that's just the law in that state. They don't require it. And you can be an auctioneer without getting certified. However, it's going to help your credibility a lot if you are certified. 8, practice makes perfect. So practice making bids using your outside voice, your auction chant, and more to hone your skills before you start bidding live. You may want to make sure you're as clear and concise as possible so that the auction runs smoothly. 9 is start out part-time. So as an auctioneer, you make usually the way it works is that you make a percentage of what each unit is sold for. So if you're just starting out or you only are auctioneering at a couple of different places, you might want to just do it part-time, maybe build up a nest egg, just see if you even like it, because once you get started, like anything, it might not be for you. And then once you are more comfortable, then kind of make the leap to full-time or doing it on a more regular basis. And 10, expand your business. So just because you live in one state doesn't mean that you can't get certified in multiple states or auctioneer in multiple states. And in fact, many of the auctioneers I know, they do that. They work an entire region. They might be for us it's North Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina, maybe even Virginia, depending on where the auctioneer is located. So having that ability to go state to state is going to improve your business as well. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and give out our weekly coupon code for our webinar attendees. And this week's coupon code is up on screen right now, and it's WEB, that's capital W, and then capital AC, and then 20. And this coupon code can be used at checkout to receive 20% off of your first state subscription or additional state subscriptions. If you've already subscribed to one state and you'd like to subscribe to another, you can use the coupon code to do that. So just a little bit about the company. We provide auction listing information for over 50 states, for all 50 states. We have provided information on over 1 million units. That's thousands, just tons of auctions for several years. We offer 30% more information than anybody else, and we have many exclusive auctions that you're not able to find anywhere else, which is really important because it gives you a jump on the competition. We have an extensive network of facilities and auctioneers that are constantly providing us with auction data, and we're constantly updating that information and passing it on to you. Our monthly subscription rates range anywhere from $1.99 to $14.99 dependent on the state that you're in, and the subscription rates for yearly start at $14.99 and range to $129.99, which is a savings of up to 35%. And there's a discount for multiple state subscribers, and if you do subscribe for a year-long subscription, you get a complimentary storage auction handbook and a coffee mug. So if you're interested in finding out more and getting registered or have any other questions, you can give us a call at 800-353-8417. And that will connect you with somebody on our customer support team who can answer your questions about getting registered or any specific monthly subscription questions that you have regarding your state and so on. And again, that number is 800-353-8417, and we'll post that at the end of the webinar as well. There's a slide that has that information. Okay. This next slide is some of you may have been at last week's webinar, but if you weren't or if you haven't seen that, we just want to continue to remind everybody about this really great offer that we have. It's an exclusive offer for storage unit auction list subscribers, which allows you to get a 50% scholarship credit on the full pro training series from Storage Treasures. And so what this training program is essentially is that it's Dan and Laura Dotson from Storage Wars, Nabila Hannes from Storage Wars, Troy Howerton from the Redneck Picker, and several other industry insiders who are professional auction attendees and hunters and pickers. They give you the information that you need to be successful. So to claim your free $50 scholarship offer, you can visit the link on the screen right now, which is https://sj111.infusionsoft.com/go/sal/A449 to preview the material. You can then sign up for the full pro training series and enter the coupon code auction list on the checkout screen to receive that $50 scholarship credit. And that will instantly reduce the price by 50% for you. And then there's lots of free information that they provide as well to give you information about the full product that you can review before you sign up for the full product. And actually, if you go to the Storage Unit Auction List YouTube channel, you can watch the webinar from last week to get all of this information, and in the description we include the link and the coupon code auction list, so that's all there on our YouTube channel. Okay, so now we'll take any questions that you have, but just before we do that, if you have questions about subscribing or just general auction information, if you have any questions at all, you can contact info@storageunitauctionlist.com. You can visit us on the blog, which we regularly update, and then again, you can give us a call at that 800 number, which is 800-353-8417, or you can connect to us on any of our social media sites. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and Tumblr. So a lot of different ways to connect to us if you have questions. So if anybody has questions now, I'll go ahead and take those. And I see that we do have some questions coming in on the question panel, so I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Gary asked, excuse me guys, just give me 1 second. I'm going to take a sip of water. Sorry about that, everybody. Get a little hoarse when I talk a long time. Does the facility have to disclose when they're bidding against you? I don't know, Gary. That is a good question. I believe that in a lot of states, it's not something that's supposed to be done. There's a conflict of interest. It may even be illegal in some states, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I can actually get back to you on that. I'll do a little bit of research after today's webinar, and I'll email you by the end of the day, most likely. If not, if you don't hear from me today, somebody will definitely get back to you on that tomorrow. But I don't think, I think in most instances it may even be illegal, so they definitely wouldn't even, they're not even supposed to do it. There's a huge conflict of interest, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So I'll get back to you on that. Does anybody else have any other questions? It looks like we have a hand raised, so let me. Hey Judy, did you have a question? Okay. Judy asked, what are the laws in New York State for auctioneering? So let me grab that information for you right now. Okay. For New York, no state license is required, and that's according to information, I believe that that's the most recent information available, is that in New York State there is no state license required. Thanks, Judy. Okay, are there any other questions related to this topic that we covered today, or any other questions at all related to storage, anything related to storage auctions or attending, or just if you're a new buyer, any sort of questions pertaining to the industry we can answer for you. And if we can't, we will get back to you. So I'm Gary, I'm sorry I didn't have to answer that. Okay, well, if there aren't any other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks everybody for attending this week's recording. This will be available on our YouTube channel. Again, that's Storage Unit Auction List, and it will be available sometime by the end of the week. And so we'll get that posted for you, and then you can watch again if you have questions or just want to review anything further. You'll have the option then. Thanks everybody. I hope you have a great week.